Hey guys, I was just gonna make a video of kind of how I prep my stuff for my Texas rigged and throwing jigs and stuff, and just gonna give you guys a little walkthrough and how to set up a Texas rigged worm and some of the craws and stuff that I use. I've got a rod here. It's a 12-pound mono is all it is. Well, when I'm throwing Texas rigs and stuff like that, dragging it across the bottom, you get a bunch of rocks and stuff, and it cuts up this line pretty easy. So I like to tip it with like a 50-pound braid, something like this. I just use like a moss green, the typical green, but I take off about 20 inches usually, what I usually start off with, and just a small swivel, just any kind of whatever size you want. I just use these small ones, and just go ahead and tie your braided line onto one of the rings here on the swivel there. Like that. Give it a good pulls and stuff. Make sure that knot's setting there real nice. And take your braided or your mono, sorry. Take your mono and just tie onto the other side. Once you have that, you just tie onto this end. So, I mean, you cut some off of that, of however long you have it. This gives you a good lead here, so that way whenever you're pitching it into rocks and heavy timber and stuff like that, you know, the line gets cut up and stuff. So a heavy, good braid like this, it's an alternative to having a whole spool full of braid. You know, sometimes you lose castability with a heavy braid and stuff like that, and I'd rather just tip it with a braid like that than lose castability and not be able to get them long casts and everything that I like. So I'm just going to rig this up, Texas rigged. So I've got a 1/4 ounce bullet head weight here, and then a large worm hook, or I mean just an offset. Really, a size is up to you on the size of bass that you are fishing for. And give that a good tight, let it sit in there, and so here we go. That weight will only go up so far because of the swivel, obviously, but this gives you a good leader. You know, that's 12-14 inches probably. It's about what I like. Sometimes I go a little longer, but not too much. But set that there, and you can use a bunch of different baits with just that. I mean, I use, you know, my trick worms, my white trick worms. These are big, what are these, 8-inch trick worms. My biffle bugs, all these biffle bugs and everything, I use the same setup. Ribbon tails like this, different kinds of them, I use same setup. Little craws, any type of little craws like these, or brush hogs, anything like that, I use the same setup for everything. This is just my go-to rig, and it works. I mean, no need to change it if it works, right? So I'll just kind of show you how to set up just a ribbon tail worm here. So you just take it and you put it through the top of the worm, and I usually go down about 4 or 5 bevels or bumps, however you want to do it, but I don't go real deep into it. And you just stick it out of the worm like this, run it down, and this offset, you just pull it through the worm until that offset pops out on the other side. Once it pops out, which is about right there, it's out, and this is why they're designed this way. You just take it and you start a little lower. You can get a little bend in the worm, it's okay. You start a little low and you just run it like that until everything flattens out. And you don't want to stick out the hook really. You just want to kind of, if you want to get it out a little bit, that's fine. We'll just kind of work that worm and stick it right back in there, so that way you're not going to catch up on everything. You're not going to catch on moss and leaves like that, but whenever a fish does bite, it comes out real easy. So that's about how I like to do mine there. Just with it stuck like that, and then just set that weight back on top of it, just like that. Pretty simple. Work this back out real quick. Let's do another one. I'll show you a on a craw. I guess this is actually Rojas Fighting Frog. I use that as a craw. It works really good as a craw. I like it. It's got a lot of action and stuff like that. So I'll show you here. So these they have a big slit in them here. That's where you want your hook to be. So I start it from the other side like this, stick it in through the head, and I go down, I don't know, maybe 3/4 of an inch, and I'll stick it back through like that. And then I just run it through just like I did on the worm, and I'll pull it through until that offset comes out. And on these, I've got this little thing here, so you just stick it in there, and it pops out real easy like this. But you just want to retract it back into that track. This is what you'll have. You'll have it looking like this. And if you want, if it keeps popping out or something after you catch a couple or something like that, just take it and kind of set it into the side of this so that hook's in there and it's not going to be popping out and stuff. So that's how I do craws and everything like that. Just real simple like that, and I do them all the same, you know. Just a Texas rig. It's real simple. Once you get the hang of it, I mean, you could do it on any type of bait you want. Like I said, I use my craws the same way. All my craws, all my worms, anything like that. I'll show you a a larger trick worm, one of these long trick worms. So they have a large end and a small end, you know, with a skinny little part, pretty typical. I like to hook it in from the large end on this side. So I just run it through the top, go down about an inch or so, stick it out, and with a big skinny trick worm like this and a big offset hook, you kind of have to fight it a little bit, but it'll go. See? So there's an offset starting to come out of there, and then you just give it a little bit, stick it back through. Simple as that, you know. I always like to stick mine out first, just to make sure it's gonna have a way out. I'll stick it out of the worm, and I'll just stick it back into the worm to where it's smooth, where it's not gonna catch stuff. When something does bite it, that hook has already a predetermined route out. So that's how I do my trick worms and everything. It's like that too. Same way I do everything else. If you want, you can actually with a smaller offset hook, you can actually, instead of coming out only an inch, you can come down, you can work that down and scrunch up your worm and work it down here to where if you're worried about them hitting it short and not ever getting to the hook, you can actually set it to where your hook's going to be down here. You do lose action doing that, but if you need to, you can do that. Otherwise, I would just suggest, you know, taking off an inch or so off the top of your worm and setting it the same if you absolutely need to get more. Typical bass, I mean, trick worms and small worms like this, I mean, they'll eat it up. You just gotta let them hit it long enough. So that's how I do those. I mean, like I said, once you figure out how to do one, I mean, I do them all the same. I don't see a reason why you couldn't do all the same. But that's how I do those. You know, I like to keep a variety of different sizes and stuff with these offset hooks. Move this out of the way real fast. So, you know, I've got just a bunch of different varieties. Some of them are a thicker gauge. Some of them aren't as big. I just like to keep them different. I've got, what else I got in here? I've got some with a spring top on them, you know, like for my swim baits and stuff like that. If I'm going weightless, I put those on sometimes. They just have this little spring on there that catches your bait. So they don't have an offset. So an offset is what I use to hold my worm or bait in place. On this, they just have a little spring. Pretty simple. I use these. They have springs on them too. These little football jigs. They work real well. Thought I had another one in here, but real simple. Just work them all the same, hook them all the same. Real simple. Like I said, about a 12-pound mono, like what I've got on this one, because I like my castability. I just tip it. I try to get about 12-14 inches of a good. I have a 50-pound braid on this, but just a good braid of, I mean, whatever you use, but rather than spooling up with a hole, having it all up in your reel and everything and losing castability and stuff like that, I just keep it with the 12-pound mono and just give it a good leader like this, and it works for me. So thank you for watching, and tune in for another one. I'll be doing videos like this, trying to show you guys my tips and everything, so hopefully you guys can be successful on the water too. We'll see you next time.